she never posts anything deep, 'cause she's a fantasy.
You're not able to ask. Good afternoon. You are at the Tempe Hearing Officer meeting for Wednesday, May 17th, 2017. Today's meeting is called to order. Good afternoon. My name is David Williams. I'm the City of Tempe's Hearing Officer. And the City of Tempe Hearing Officer is authorized by Arizona Revised Statutes and the City of Tempe Zoning and Development Code. The Hearing Officer has the duty to carry out the provisions and intent of the City of Tempe General Plan and Zoning and Development Code, and he is granted the authority to conduct public hearings to review, approve, continue, deny, or approve with conditions several types of applications, including use permits, variances, and property abatements. On today's modified agenda, we have 14 items that will be heard, consisting of approval of a set of meeting minutes, 9 different property abatement cases, 3 use permit requests, 1 request for a use permit standard, and 2 variance requests, and a partridge and a pear tree. Agenda item number 2, the Chung property, and item number 5, the Axford property abatement, have both been withdrawn from today's agenda. If you are here for agenda items 2 or 5, neither of those cases will be heard today. As the hearing officer, I reviewed each of the reports that are from the City of Tempe Community Development Department staff, and there's one on each item that's on the agenda today, and I used the information in that report during the deliberations of the meeting. Additionally, I've driven by and walked on many of these properties today to take a look at the conditions, the neighboring conditions, and the nature of the request or the agenda item. If you're an applicant or interested citizen, when your request is called or when you wish to address the hearing officer, please step on up to the microphone at the front of the room and state your name and city of residence. Any person other than the applicant that wishes to speak is welcome to do so. You should complete a white speaker card. Those are sitting on the table next to the podium at the front, and I believe there's some at the table in the rear. You're given 3 minutes approximately to speak. Any person who is aggrieved by a decision of the hearing officer can file an appeal, and you've got 14 days to do that appeal. So for decisions made today, if you want to file an appeal, it's due by 3 p.m. May 31st, 2017. That's 3 p.m. May 31st, 2017, if you want to file an appeal from a decision made today. Those appeals of the decisions of the hearing officer are either heard by the Board of Adjustment or the Development Review Commission, whichever body is appropriate for that type of case. In the case of a property abatement, if the property owner fails to file an appeal or fails to bring the property into compliance prior to that appeal date, the code violations that are going to be addressed at the hearing today will be abated by the City of Tempe. So, with us today are some Tempe staff members, including over to my right are Steve Abrahamson, he's a principal planner, Diane McGuire, administrative assistant, Lee Jimenez, senior planner, and Karen Stovall, senior planner. Welcome, staff. We are ready to roll into our first agenda item.
William?
Yes, Mr. Abrahamson.
May I request an administrative change to the order of the cases today?
Absolutely. What would you like?
And a request of the property owner of case number 8 to go first, in that he needs to catch a flight.
We'll move number 8 up to item 2, or right after item 1 then?
I mean 2, yes, thank you.
Okay. Thank you. No problem. Happy to do that. Welcome. Okay. So the first agenda item is consideration and approval of the minutes from our last meeting. I did review those minutes. They were acceptable. They're accurate to what happened at our last meeting, and they are hereby approved. So now we're going to take out of order agenda item number 8, and this is a request to approval to abate public nuisance items at the Reese property located at 1024 East Spence Avenue. The applicant here is the City of Tempe. Thank you very much. And Mr. White, this is your case.
My name's Marv White, Commercial Code Inspector at the City of Tempe. I'm here to address the property at 1024 East Spence Avenue. I would like to continue this case into the next hearing. I've just spoken with the property owner who is present. He has advised me that the property is into compliance. He has shown me photos that the property is into compliance, and I would need the ability to inspect the property myself to
Okay.
verify that.
Very well. I recognize, thank you, Mr. White. Mr. Reese, you're here. If you'd like to speak, come on up. We'll get you through. I'll be happy to grant the continuance as requested by Mr. White. And again, thanks for taking the time to be here.
Sure, thank you very much. Joseph Reese, 10, it's actually 1020 East Spence. They have 1024 East Spence. Confusion on the address, vacant lot. The lot is largely dirt. There's some patches of grass that pop up, and we weren't aware that the grass had gotten to any kind of significant level that would be known as blight, but I did bring a photo to show what was considered blight. But be that as it may, and I'm a developer here in town. We're building the Newport at Tempe, the 38 homes on Weber Avenue right now. We've gone ahead. As soon as I became aware of it, I got my crew out there, and it's all done. So it's here's a photo.
Great.
I don't even need. Keep a watch on it just in case any more grass pops up.
Okay. Excellent. I appreciate your attention to the matter. It is to address it. The city does have fairly high standards for property maintenance, and we've got cases across the street from you, for example, later today for similar issues. Very much appreciate this. I do have to have Mr. White go verify in the field, and then we'll get you taken care of. Thank you very much.
There shouldn't be any need for me to appear again, though, right?
You wouldn't know. If we're all good, Mr. White good, he'll let you know if there's a problem. Otherwise, I wouldn't expect you have to. You certainly have the right to be here. That meeting date is probably June 6th, probably, or June 20th, one of those two dates, probably June 6th. So thank you again.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Yeah. Is there anyone else in the audience who wanted to speak on agenda item number 8, public nuisance abatement on Reese property? Not seeing anybody. We will grant this a continuance as requested by staff and recognize there's been improvement to the property or maintenance. And do we have a date specific we want, or we just continue it?
June 6th.
Okay. This will be continued to the June 6th hearing officer meeting. Okay, back to our agenda order, which puts us at agenda item number 3. Since we two taken off today, this is request to approve to abate public nuisance items at the Sachet property. Excuse my pronunciation. This is case CE 171554 at 1225 East Gemini. The applicant is the city. Again, this is case number 3. And staff, go right ahead.
Good afternoon, sir. Jack Schofield,
Mr.
Code
Schofield.
Inspector with the City of Tempe. Here today requesting a 180-day open abatement for the property at 1225 East Gemini to address deteriorated landscape, deteriorated pool, and trash and debris scattered throughout the property. Notifications were mailed to the property owner and posted at the property. On one of my inspections, one of the neighbors informed me that the property owner is deceased. I have not been able to find any next of kin to be able to send anything to. And also, the property is going to be going into pre-foreclosure. There is a sticker on the door from the Property Preservation Company. However, there is nothing posted yet with the county for a trustee sale to get any of the bank information. Therefore, that's why I'm asking to have the 180-day open abatement for this property.
And again, on the previous case like this case, the reason we're looking in this backyard is from complaints from neighboring property owners as to these nuisance items. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. The complaint
Okay.
came in about trash and debris in the back and the green pool.
Okay. Anything else you want to add?
No, sir.
Thank you very much for your time today. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to speak on agenda item number 3? This is an abatement case for the Sachet property on 1225 East Gemini. Not seeing anybody. I inspected the property today. It is in need of maintenance, and as such, I'm going to agree with staff's recommendation and approve the 180-day open abatement. Thank you, Mr. Schofield. Our next agenda item is number 4. It's request approval to abate public nuisance items at the Calvert property. This is case CE 162759, located at 2117 South Los Feliz Drive. Applicant is the City of Tempe. Mr. Glab, welcome.
Good evening, sir. My name is Michael Glab, residential code inspector for the City of Tempe. I'm here tonight in reference to the property at 2117 South Los Feliz Drive. My case started in April of last year when my office received a complaint related to the property. I received numerous communications with the property owners. Extensions were granted, numerous, related to health issues, family members who were supposed to help make changes at the property. Then the holidays, I didn't want to conduct the abatement during Thanksgiving or Christmas. Finally moved forward with abating the property after some progress was made, but they just weren't completing the work that needed to be done in relation to a palm tree and a pine tree in the backyard landscape. We were previously approved for an abatement, which was conducted earlier this year. However, upon conducting that abatement, the contractors notified me that they had not bid on the 2 largest trees in the backyard due to a fence down about 10% of the backyard. The contractor took their bid from the alley side and only saw 90% of the yard and not that other 10%. They thought that fence line down the middle was the property line. So at this point in time, due to the contractors being unable to deal with those 2 trees and their failure to include it in the bid, I'm seeking approval for those 2 trees. At the time of the abatement, the owners notified me that they weren't going to be maintaining the trees themselves, and they actually wanted approval to cut down the pine tree. However, the majority of the tree is alive at this point in time, so I'm seeking approval for a 180-day abatement in the event that that tree further deteriorates and we need to return and trim off additional branches.
Okay. So we did a partial abatement.
Correct.
They did not appeal that abatement decision, correct?
That's correct.
And has that partial abatement's been completed at this point?
That's correct.
Okay. And so we're back again and no further communication, no intent to address it themselves, is what I understand.
That's correct. I went by this morning, sir, and there was no change that I can recall from my last inspection.
Yeah, it looked the same to me as well. Looked like a fire hazard too, to be honest.
The pine tree has some significant portions that are blackened and hanging off the tree, and then the palm tree has a significant beard that's going down the back towards
Beard?
the alleyway. Yes, sir.
Is that a technical term?
I believe so. I've heard it referenced in relation to a palm, what hangs below the top
That's
of
pretty
palm.
good, yeah. Okay. Not really a laughing matter, but that was amusing. Anything else?
No, sir.
Okay. Thank you for your time today. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak on agenda item 4 for the Calvert property? We partially abated this and we're back to do part 2 today. There's been no change. I'm not seeing anyone in the audience to speak on this case. The requested abatement by staff is approved as a 180-day open abatement, and thank you for your work on that case. Okay, we're going to move right then to item number 6 because item 5 was pulled off the agenda, and item 6 is a request to requesting approval to abate public nuisance items at the Brown property, case CE 17-2064. This property is at 1208 West Malibu. Ms. Zedlar.
Brandy Zedler, Code Inspector, City of Tempe. This complaint originated in March for junk and debris, deteriorated landscaping. He did make effort and get the landscaping cleaned up, but there is a large amount of junk and debris in the carport and driveway area, refrigerators. I believe they do have food in them. I did abate this property in 2014 for the same hoarding type issues. Mr. Brown has contacted me through emails indicating that his intention is to clean it up. He's just unable to get the violations corrected and take care of it, mainly due to health issues. So I am requesting a 180-day open abatement as this continues to be a problem that doesn't resolve itself. We have been receiving complaints from neighboring properties in getting this corrected.
Yeah, I can see why. It's a mess really there, and it certainly is a nuisance. Any additional contact with the property owner?
Nothing at this time.
Okay. Thank you very much. Anyone in the public, in the audience, who wanted to speak on agenda item 6 for the Brown property? Come on up. And welcome.
Kevin Brown from Tempe. Excuse me.
Welcome. Thanks for being here today.
I have no dispute with what Brandy was saying. It's accurate, and I had sent some emails over the last, I don't want this to sound like Queen for a day, so some of us remember that show. But I've had a lot of health problems in the last 3 years and been in and out of the hospital, and so it was difficult already for me to do some of these things on my own. What created this problem is that I had been staying with someone after I got out of the hospital a couple of times who was helping me because I couldn't really take very good care of myself. And as time went on, this is a woman who's a friend of mine, and we purchased a lot of food and we were in some cooking groups as well. So we ended up with a fair amount of joint property. And due to some circumstances that she had no control over, like a son moving back into her place, et cetera, she had to pack up all this, everything, put it in boxes, and she dumped it in my driveway. And I didn't ask for it. It just showed up in 2 different waves. And everything was mixed together. Household goods, food, magazines, my own some of my paperwork. So there was no way to really easily sort it. But I was working on it at the end of March, and unfortunately, I tripped and fell, and I'm already 100% disabled, but this time I landed on my left palm with my full body weight and destroyed my left shoulder. So now this is as high as I can lift my arm. And the result is that it was very difficult for me to impossible for me to do anything as far as moving these boxes in the front.
Right.
Or if something falls to the ground, that's where it's going to be pretty much, because it's hard for me to bend over. I don't have a crew like the former speaker, Mr. Reese, to order over to my house, but I have been working with Tempe Neighbors Helping Neighbors, and they are the ones who helped me get the yard done, and they also had a scheduled appointment to come over and help me do something with a lot of these boxes to move them and put them in my truck to take to storage. Unfortunately, they had to cancel that meeting, and so we postponed it, and I just got a call on Monday from Chuck Schwartz, who's, I don't know if you know him or not, from Tempe Neighbors Helping Neighbors, all right? So they're still willing to help me do it. I've also been able to have some friends come and help me also, and so the last several days, I've been doing a piecemeal as much as I can, but I think we're about 90% done right now, and I have no argument that it needs to be done, as Randy had said.
Yeah.
It's just has been beyond my capabilities, but we're almost done, and I think probably by the weekend, or certainly in a week or so, it will be completely done. And I had the one broken refrigerator out in the front near the street now, with Goodwill supposedly coming to pick that up. So I don't know if anybody went by there today or not, but
I did.
Did you see 2 people feverishly working? No, huh?
No, it looked like there might have been some work going on the way the truck was positioned in the driveway, but
What time were you there?
I didn't see a soul.
What time were you there?
3:30ish, maybe 3:30, somewhere in there.
Okay, that
Between
might have
2:30 and 3:30.
Okay, that's probably the heat of the daybreak. So we worked till about 2 o'clock, I think, 1 o'clock, so.
Gotcha. So you think you're pretty close.
I
You
think we're very
say you
close.
understand the reasons why we're here today and
Oh.
the issue with it. Okay.
Absolutely, and I've been embarrassed about it myself, but it's
So, I think you need help, and the city's about to help you in a big way. So you got a couple weeks left to take care of it and finish it, okay? And that's what we'd like to see you do, so we don't need to come in and abate. I appreciate you being here today.
Yeah, and I think it will be done. I just wanted to make sure it doesn't happen tomorrow morning
Right.
while we're still in the process of getting so close. so.
Okay, well, you'll have about 2 more weeks to get it done.
That'll be
Okay.
great.
Thank you for being here today. Let me see if there's anyone else who wants to speak. Is there anyone who did want to speak on agenda item 6, the Brown property on West Malibu Drive? Not seeing anybody, on understanding neighbors are concerned, the property owner acknowledges the situation. I'm going to approve the requested abatement. Mr. Brown, you've got those 2 weeks till the 31st of May to get it cleaned up, and you need to notify Ms. Zedlar or the city that it's been done so they can come check it and then file the appeal. You'll need to appeal the abatement, and staff can show you how to do that. It's not complicated, and just get the work done, and I'm sure the city will take care of you. So that request is approved as requested by staff for an open 180-day abatement. And again, thank you for coming today. Okay, we're going to move on to agenda item number 7. This is an abatement case at the Palmer property, CE 17-1310, located at 419 East Libra Drive. Applicants, the City of Tempe. Ms. Zedlar.
Brandy Zedler, Code Inspector, City of Tempe. This complaint came in February 2017 for deteriorated landscaping. There has been no effort, no contact from the owner. I have dealt with them in the past. We actually abated it in 2015 for the same violations. Again, he has some health conditions. I know he's hospitalized quite a bit, so at this time it doesn't even appear that he's at the home. But the weed and grass is getting relatively tall. The neighbors are complaining on a weekly basis about it getting taken care of. So that is why I am requesting an open 180-day abatement so that we can keep it maintained should it become an issue in the next 6 months.
How many, this has been a cyclical or series of abatements or complaints?
Yes.
It's been going on for years? Is that
It's been going on since 2004.
4? Okay.
His first abatement that was completed was in 15.
Okay. Thank you very much. Anyone in the audience for agenda item 7 on the Palmer property on 419 East Libra Drive? I drove by this property as well as the others, and certainly it is overgrown, the landscape's not maintained. It even looks like we have a junk vehicle in the driveway, potentially. Not seeing anybody here to address this. I'm going to approve the open 180-day abatement as requested by staff. Thank you, Ms. Zedler. We heard agenda item 8, and so we're going to move on to agenda item number 9. That is a abatement case for the Sroka property. Actually, what we're going to do here with agenda item number 9, 10, 11, and 12, we're going to hear them all at once. Let me read all of them to make sure everybody knows what's going on. These are 4 abatement cases on 4 vacant lots that abut each other. They're all right next to each other on Spence Avenue. So this is case number CM17035 at 931 East Spence Avenue. It's also case number CM170346 at 943 East Spence Avenue. Case number agenda item 11, CM170347, located at 947 East Spence, and agenda item number 12, case number CM170348, and the address there is 1005 East Spence Avenue. And as mentioned earlier, it's across the street from agenda item 8 we heard earlier. So we got 4 of them opened up. Mr. White, why don't you tell us what's going on?
My name is Marvin White, Commercial Code Inspector for the City of Tempe. These particular properties have been a nuisance to the community. They're overgrown with weeds, trash, debris. We've been having problems with these properties for the last 6 years. These particular properties have been abated by the city twice already. The ownership has shown no effort to keep the properties into compliance. We have numerous correspondence with the property owner. Still, we can't get the properties to maintain compliance. So what I am requesting today is a open 180-day abatement on these 4 parcels.
Very well. And as you said, in terms of correspondence with the owner, what's the most recent correspondence?
We've sent out 3 violation notices. We've sent the final violation notice certified. The certified notice was signed. It was sent back, so I did receive it. So the property owner did sign it. 4 citations were issued as well. I don't know if those were taken care of or not. So that's where we are now. I haven't received any type of contact with the owner. He hasn't contacted us and anything of that nature. I did go by the properties for this morning. The properties were not in compliance. Matter of fact, the weeds got a little taller.
Okay. Thank you very much. Is the owner here or anyone who wants to speak on agenda items either 9, 10, 11, or 12? This would be the appointed time if anyone would like to speak on any of those 4 abatement cases. Not seeing anyone to speak on them. I did inspect this property. I'm in agreement with staff, and I'm going to approve the abatement, so I'm going to go through each one just for the record. So the request to approve abatement, an open 180-day abatement on agenda item 9, case CM 170305 is approved. The request to abate for open 180 days on agenda item number 10, CM 170346 is approved. The request to approve abatement for agenda item 11, CM 170347 is approved, and the request for agenda item 12, case CM 170348 is also approved. Those are all on East Spence Avenue from 931 over to 1005 East Spence Avenue. Thank you, Mr. White, for your work on those. Okay. We're going to shift gears a little bit as we move to agenda item 13. This is our first use permit request for today relating to a parking facility, a surface parking lot for commercial use for East Line Village. This is case PL 170121, and the addresses are 2032 through 2034 East Wildermuth Avenue, and the applicant is Gamage and Berman. And I know it's not Mr. White's case. Ms. Stovall.
Yes, good evening. My name is Karen Stovall, Senior Planner. This use permit request is for the properties at 2032 and 2034 East Wildermuth Avenue. The property is zoned R4 and is within the Transportation Overlay District.
Can you point it out on that map? It wasn't real super clear.
It is these 2.
Gotcha. Thank you.
The properties are outlined in this site plan on red, which is going to be this area. The current owner recently acquired these 2 properties and intends to incorporate them into the East Line Village mixed-use development that was approved by City Council in September 2016. These specific properties would be used to expand the previously approved surface parking lot on the north side of Wildermuth. The R4 zoning district permits parking facilities for commercial uses subject to a use permit, and while the TOD overlay prohibits parking as a principal use, parking may occur if it is ancillary to the commercial uses of the East Line project directly north of the site. The applicant will need to process an amended subdivision plat to tie the parcels together into one lot, and a development plan review application is also required to ensure that the design of the parking lot complies with the landscape buffer and wall requirements of the zoning code. A neighborhood meeting was not required for this request, and staff has not received any public input. Based on the information submitted with the application and review of the use permit findings, we're recommending approval subject to the stipulations listed in the staff report, and I can answer any questions if you had.
Great. I think I understand it pretty well. There will be a wall, a screen wall, and perimeter landscaping.
There is, according to the code, there are single-family homes on the west side of the property, The code requires an 8-foot high block wall and a 6-foot wide landscape buffer with screen trees. So that will have to be provided.
And there's not access out to Wildermuth Avenue, that's correct? Is that correct?
The development plan review that was approved does not have access from Wildermuth. That does not mean that in future phases, if the applicant is able to make the right-of-way improvements, the sidewalk, curb gutter that's required on the north side of Wildermuth, they would be permitted to install driveways.
So it's possible in the future, it's not part of this approval.
Correct.
They need to meet certain requirements to obtain that access. Great. That's all the questions I had. Thank you very much. Is the applicant here today for agenda item number 13, little parking lot expansion? Welcome for East Line Village.
Good afternoon, Hearing Officer Williams, Rob Lane, Land Use Planner with the law firm of Gamage and Burham, 2 North Central Avenue in Phoenix. We represent East Line Land Ventures, which is a partnership between DMB Associates and Apache Partners. Founded in 1984, DMB has created some of the country's finest master plan communities, such as DC Ranch in Scottsdale, Eastmark in Mesa, and Verrado in Buckeye. DMB has also developed notable urban mixed-use projects such as Center Point on Mill here in downtown Tempe. With East Line Village, of which the property subject to the request before you this afternoon will be an integral part, DMB and Apache Partners are creating a legacy mixed-use development along the East Apache redevelopment corridor. As Karen mentioned, the request before you today is a request for use permit approval to allow a parking courtyard for commercial uses within the R4 zoning district. The purpose of the request is to expand the parking courtyard of the East Line Village mixed-use development that was approved last year by the Tempe City Council. Due to being under different ownership at the time, the subject property was not included in the entitlement applications that were approved last year. As Karen mentioned, the subject property has since been acquired by the applicant. To provide some background in terms of East Line Village is a phased development of approximately 14 acres along Apache Boulevard. The village will provide a mix of uses, including multifamily residential, office, and various commercial uses, along with associated parking, landscape, and amenity improvements. The village represents a rare opportunity to redevelop several small parcels that have been assembled over more than a decade to create a project that will make a substantial statement along Apache. As reflected by the aerial photograph in front of you, the subject property is approximately 0.67 acres in size and adjoins the approved East Line Village development site to both the east and the north. The area surrounding the village and the subject property accommodates a mix of employment, public, commercial, and residential uses, as well as multiple underutilized and unimproved or vacated properties. The general purpose of the proposed parking courtyard is to support commercial uses within and along the village's adjoining Main Street Plaza to the north. The parking courtyard will provide an appropriate amount of parking for patrons of the village's commercial uses for who the light rail may neither be convenient nor a viable transportation option. As reflected by the site plan, the parking courtyard to be constructed as part of the village's first phase of development will provide 201 parking spaces, of which 58 of those spaces are located on the subject property. In order to ensure a cohesive overall development, the landscape palette on the subject property will utilize landscape materials that are consistent with those materials to be utilized throughout the overall development. And the proposed landscape coverage is approximately 23%, which is more than appropriate for an urban mixed-use environment. As detailed in our letter of explanation included in the application submittal packet and as detailed by the staff report, the request for the use permit does satisfy the criteria for approval. In closing, the approval of the use permit will allow for an expansion of a low-impact and compatible parking courtyard that is needed to provide parking in proximity to East Line Village's commercial uses. We are in agreement with all of the recommended conditions that staff has put forth in their staff report. We respectfully request your approval of the use permit at this time and are more than happy to address any questions you may have.
Very good. Okay, you understood my question about access, no confusion there, right? Okay, good. It looks like the site plan is not proportionally matched the width of this parcel, so is it that parking lot in combination with an adjacent piece? Or is it just the piece in red right
It's the
here?
piece in red that's subject to the use
Okay.
permit request.
So what's east of there has yet to be
That's
constructed?
correct. So this is, that's the site plan for the overall first phase, excluding the portion in red.
Okay, so that's the one kind of finger down to Wildermuth, that phase one.
Yes.
Got it. I think that was all the questions I had, and I understood there was no neighborhood meeting requirement for this as a parking lot. And we've got some residential uses adjacent. Welcome, thanks for being here. I think I'm good at this moment. I may need to call you back up. Anyone in the audience who'd like to speak on agenda item 13? This is a use permit request for a parking lot approval, a surface parking lot. I'm not seeing anybody. Did visit this property as well today. Have reviewed the staff report and got my questions answered about wall and landscaping, and understand they'll need to have a plan review for that. When we review use permits in the city of Tempe, there's several criteria that need to be met, and those are reviewed both by staff and myself in terms of consideration of approval. And I'm going to go through those real quickly for the record. The first one is any significant increase in vehicular or pedestrian traffic. This is part of a master plan development. This is what's been intended, so it's really just building out what has already been analyzed and approved by the city council. So this is acceptable level and intensity of development. And as such, will not represent a significant increase, and I have deemed that criteria is met. Any nuisance arising from odor, dust, gas, noise, vibration, smoke, heat, or glare, as long as we don't have raging parties in the parking lot, I don't expect to have any issues there from a parking lot as on its face value, and therefore that condition is met. If we do have parties in the parking lot, I guess we'll be back to talk about that. Number 3 is contribution to the deterioration of the neighborhood or downgrading of property values. Frankly, in my opinion, this is going to improve property values in the area as these folks invest in this property. It's a general positive for the immediate area and the city. Number 4 is compatibility with existing surrounding structures and uses. There are industrial uses south of this property. The surface lot is compatible with those industrial uses. There is residential nearby as well, directly to the west, and that is to be buffered with an 8-foot wall, as you may have noticed in the discussion, along with some landscaping. And with those improvements, that compatibility criteria is met as well, in my opinion. And number 5, control of disruptive behavior inside and outside of the premises, which could create a nuisance to the surrounding area. We don't expect any problems with the use of this parking lot. If there are, we'll talk about it later. But certainly on face value, again, this certainly meets the criteria. Staff has recommended approval. I am in agreement with staff. We haven't heard any objection today. This request for use permit to allow a parking facility for commercial use is approved, subject to the 6 conditions in the staff report. Mr. Lane, are you familiar with the conditions? Any questions on those?
We are familiar with them, and we are in agreement with them.
Thank you, and thanks for being here today. This request for use permit, again, is approved, subject to those 6 conditions. That puts us on our next agenda item, which is number 14. This is also a use permit, and this is for, this is a variance, not a use permit. This is a variance to reduce the lot size to permit guest quarters, reduce the rear yard setback for an accessory building, and a use permit to reduce the west side yard setback for the Abbott residence. So we have both a variance and use permit on this case. The property is at 215 East 15th Street. Mr. Jimenez.
Good evening, Hearing Officer Williams. My name is Lee Jimenez. I'm a senior planner with the Community Development Department. The Abbott Residence is proposing a new 2,000 square foot accessory building on Lot 11 of the University Park Addition subdivision, which is located near the southeast corner of East 15th Street and South College Avenue in the R16 Single Family Residential District. The applicants, Martha and Ryan Abbott, have owned the property since 2004. They are requesting 2 variances and 1 use permit standard for this accessory building, which consists of a garage with storage space and guest quarters, which is located on the rear of the lot. The building will be 14 feet, 4 inches in height, 40 feet in width, and 50 feet in length. The first variance request is to reduce the minimum lot size to allow guest quarters from 15,000 square feet to 14,382 square feet. The second variance request is to reduce the required rear yard setback of an accessory building from 9 feet to 5 feet. And the use permit standard request is to reduce the required west side yard setback of an accessory building from 9 feet to 6 feet. A little historical background on this lot. At the time of when the subdivision was platted in 1945, the original lot size was approximately 32,756 square feet. Then in 1948, the city purchased the south 100 feet of the lot and the lot to the west, the 100 feet south of the lot to the west, reducing the lot size to 22,256 square feet. Then in 1971, the western 35 feet of the lot was deeded to the neighbor to the west, reducing the lot size further to 14,832 square feet as it exists today. The city continues to own the lots to the south of the Abbott residence, which consists of a small well site processing building and an air quality monitor. So a little historical overview of the zoning code. Prior to 1957, accessory buildings and uses were allowed in single-family residential districts. Lots with dwellings existing on the rear 1/3 of the lot were allowed to erect a residence on the front 2/3 of the lot, as long as the lot met the minimum size required by the zoning ordinance at the time. However, beginning in 1957, new accessory buildings were not permitted for sleeping or living purposes. Then in 2009, the Zoning and Development Code was amended to permit guest quarters in single-family residential districts with special standards. The Abbotts held separate meetings, neighborhood meetings for each variance request. The first meeting took place on March 22nd from 5:30 to 6:30. This was for the variance for the guest quarters. 4 members from the neighborhood attended, but no one was in opposition. The second meeting took place on May 1st from 5:30 to 6:30. No one attended this meeting. However, the applicant received 2 phone calls in support of the request. And to date, staff has not received any public input so far.
Okay.
So as indicated in the staff report, staff believes that this application meets all the approval criteria for the 2 variances and the use permit standard, and supports these requests subject to the conditions provided in the staff report. And I'll be available should you have any questions.
Great, and the conditions of approval were straightforward and standard, nothing specific in there, right? Is that correct? Okay, and again, thank you for clarifying, so it was 2 variances and 1 use permit standard. Thank you, Mr. Jimenez. Is the property owner or representative here today for the Abbott property? Welcome.
Thank you very much. Ryan Abbott and my wife Martha is here as well.
Thanks for being here today. Do you have any additional information you'd like to present? Do you have any questions? Have you seen the conditions of approval? Do you understand those?
We do, and nothing in addition other than we're really looking forward to this project.
Okay. Any late-breaking neighbor questions or knocking on the door or emails or anything, inquiries coming to you guys directly?
Everybody's been great and in full support of the
Okay.
variance.
And understand the lot was bigger at one time, and so I am receptive to the variance request in terms of the lot size. So thank you very much for being here today. I may need to call you back up with questions, so don't go too far. And thank you. Anyone else in the audience wanted to speak on agenda item 14? This is a request for 2 variances and the use permit standard. Come on up. Welcome. We need you to grab a white speaker card and fill that out too, if you would. And, go right ahead.
My name is John Ball. I live at 126 East 15th Street, about 5 houses to the east. I attended the open house that the Abbotts had. I've looked at their drawings. I've spoken with staff in their offices, and I'm in favor of this application.
Excellent, excellent. Well, thank you for participating in the meeting and for taking your time to come today. And yeah, please go ahead and throw us a speaker card if you would, Mr. Ball. Anyone else? Okay, not seeing anybody else. Again, this is a request for 2 variances, subject to conditions and 1 use permit standard. When we talk about use permits, there's some criteria that include significant increase in pedestrian or vehicular traffic from this request for these for guest quarters and the garage. While it may have additional folks living on the property, that's not really viewed as a significant increase in traffic. Seems reasonable in a relatively low-density neighborhood. I believe that criteria is met. Nuisance from odor, dust, gas, noise, vibration, heat, or glare. That is not expected from a garage or a setback reduction. I believe that criteria is met as well. Contribution to the deterioration of the neighborhood or downgrading of property values. Usually when we invest in property and add new improvements, we do quite the opposite, and we promote the neighborhood and improve its value. And I believe that's the case, and this criteria is met as well. Number 4, compatibility with existing surrounding structures. Detached guest quarters and garages are common in this neighborhood, as I noted when I was driving around there today. The design is different from the house. Staff notes, I certainly agree with that. It is placed at the very farthest back edge of the property, and we don't expect that to be in terms of a compatibility issue for this. So I think criteria 4 is met. And control disruptive behavior, which could create a nuisance to the public. We don't expect any from a guest house. If something does get created, that should be reported to the city so the city can follow up on it. We don't expect it. We think this criteria is met. So as such, the request for the variances to for rear yard setback, to reduce the lot size required for guest quarters, and the use permit are approved, subject to the conditions in the staff report. And thank you for being here, and good luck with your project. Okay. Yes, Diane. If staff would like me to, I'd be happy to do so. Okay. Thank you, Ms. McGuire. We're good. But we are going to add to the record on this case reasoning for the approval, and there is criteria related to variances, and that includes special circumstances are applicable to the property, including its size, shape, and topography. We discussed how the area of this property had been reduced by changes to it, including acquisition by the city of Tempe. So I believe that criteria has been met. The application of this code would deprive property privileges enjoyed by other folks. These guest houses and detached garages are common in this neighborhood, and it seems like a reasonable request and use of their lot. The adjustment that we're authorizing today is not really a grant of special privilege for the same reason that privilege is enjoyed by neighboring properties as well. And number 4, variance should not be granted if the special circumstances applicable to the property are self-imposed. The current owners did not reduce the size of the property. It's not something they've created. And as such, I believe that criteria is met as well. And thank you, Ms. McGuire, for getting that on the record. And thanks again. Okay, agenda item 15. This is a use permit for an amusement business. It's an escape room by category, I would say, for Brainstorm or escape rooms. It's case PL 170125. It's located at 2155 East University in Suite 111. The applicant is Mauricio Bern and Mr. Jimenez.
Good evening. Once again, Lee Jimenez, Senior Planner with the Community Development Department. Brainstormer Escape Rooms is proposing to operate an amusement business referred to as an escape room establishment in Suite 111 of the Shops at University and 101 Shopping Center, which is located on the southwest corner of East University Drive in the Loop 101 in the CSS Commercial Shopping and Services District. The applicant, Mauricio Bern, indicates that the establishment will consist of 3 escape rooms, each providing an escape game for up to 6 persons. Games will last 1 hour and will be staggered throughout the day. To date, staff has not received any public input, and as indicated in the staff report, staff believes that this application meets all the approval criteria for this use permit and supports this request subject to the conditions provided in the staff report. And I'll be available should you have any questions.
Just for the record, Mr. Jimenez, so in terms of customer flow, is there peak times or is this an appointment situation? How do traffic flow in and out of here?
It's based on reservations and it's time slots, I assume, throughout the day, staggered to allow for parties to come in, go into a room, while you have another wait in the lobby, wait and go to another room, and then they also need some downtime to prep the room or reset the room for the next party coming in. So at one time, as indicated by the applicant, you could have 3 parties in the suite, which would be maybe 6 people per game room, which would be about 18 people in the building.
And I mean, I saw in your report you discussed parking in that center a little bit, so you feel the parking is adequate for this use?
The parking demand for this type of use is equivalent to that of a retail use, which is allowed by right in this suite. The way I calculated parking for this type of use is like a live theater setup or a murder mystery type of setup where you have 1 parking space required per 3 guests.
Gotcha. Okay. Great. Okay, I think that's it. Thank you, Mr. Jimenez. I did note that the hours of operation will go till midnight on Fridays and Saturdays. Is the applicant here or a representative? Come on up and welcome.
Hello, thank you. My name is Mauricio Bernet, representing Brainstormer. I'm representative / owner, I guess, at this point. Basically, what we want to do is open up an escape room business to give entertainment to the neighborhood, the surrounding area, give alternatives to the college students here, other than the bar scene or nightclub scene where it might not be as family oriented as we're planning on being. I am a husband, father, and grandfather. So I have a lot of investment in family. It's very important to me, and that's why I would like to propose this and give Tempe a place for family fun.
Yeah, I've noted these are kind of a trend. I've seen them in other locations. Very interesting use. There are 3 conditions of approval in the staff report. Did you have any questions about those or concerns? Okay.
No, I do not.
Thanks for being here, and let me see if there's anyone else who wants to speak.
Okay.
Is there anyone on agenda item number 15 who'd like to speak today for this use permit request for Brainstormer? Not seeing anyone in the audience. Inspected this property today. It seems well suited to the use. As we discussed with staff, parking is certainly adequate. It does run till midnight. Seems compatible with the other uses in the center that serves food later at night. As I discussed with staff in the study session, the request for use permit is subject to criteria, including any significant increase in vehicular traffic. We discussed will add some traffic to this center, but the center is designed and has the capacity to handle that traffic. So that criteria is met. Nuisance from odor, dust, gas, noise, vibration. We don't expect that. It's an indoor activity. and as such, we believe that criteria would be met. Contribution to deterioration of the neighborhood or downgrading of the property values. The proposed use is intended, this is wholesome entertainment as opposed to maybe other things that are more purely adult like alcohol or other things. So we think this is a positive for the neighborhood, and these are type of uses that support all age ranges and family. And as such, we think that criteria is easily met. Compatibility with existing structures and uses, there's no changes. This is an existing retail space. It fits right in there. As we said, the parking works, the pedestrian circulation works. That criteria is deemed to be met. And finally, number 5, control of disruptive behavior inside and outside the premises. Certainly inside, we don't expect an issue. If things begin to happen outside, we have a way to address that. That is not expected. And we think this, again, will fit in nicely and will not create a nuisance in the immediate area to the general public. And that criteria is met, in my opinion, as well. This request for use permit is approved, subject to the 3 conditions in the staff report. And good luck with your business. Welcome. Okay, we got one more case, I think, and that is agenda item 16. This is our last use permit case today. It is to allow an animal kennel for cats for, if I pronounce this wrong, pardon me, for La Gatara Cat Cafe. It's case PL 170083, located at 1301 East University Drive in Suite 136, kind of around the side there from University. And Mr. Jimenez.
Good evening, Lee Jimenez once again, Senior Planner with the Community Development Department. The Gatara Cat Cafe is proposing to operate a cat cafe in Suite 136 of the Aztec Court Commercial Center, located on the southeast corner of East University Drive in South Dorsey Lane in the PCC1 Planned Commercial Center Neighborhood District. The applicant, Joshua Oler, indicates that the cat cafe will be the first of its kind in the state. This type of establishment allows for cat patrons to interact with cats and possibly adopting one before they leave. The establishment consists of 2 separate areas, the cat cafe, or the cat cafe area and the cat area, separated by a wall and a door/window storefront system. The cafe area will consist of the kitchen, dining, storage, and restroom, and the cat area will consist of bench seating with cat play zones scattered throughout the room. The kennel areas which require the use permit will be provided in one corner and the center of the cat play area. The hours of operation will be from 9 a.m. to 10 p.m., Tuesday through Sunday, with 3 staff members. All doors within the cat area will be self-closing. Exterior doors will have panic hardware installed. To date, staff hasn't received any public input. As indicated in the staff report, staff believes that this application meets all the approval criteria for this use permit and supports this request, subject to the conditions provided in the staff report.
Very good. And Mr. Jimenez, you may have said, and I missed it, any public input on this or comment?
No public input has been received to date.
Okay. And I see you've got 7 conditions of approval in there. Thank you very much.
Welcome.
Is the applicant here today, our representative? Come on up.
Thank you. Joshua Ayler with Arkwine Associates, the architect and applicant on the project.
Welcome.
Thank you. And thank you for your time.
You're welcome.
And staff for their help on this project. It's been a little bit of work to try to work with staff and trying to get our niche since we're the first ones here. And overall, we're focused on trying to rescue cats and still have an interactive spot for the public to, if you can't have your own cat, you can play with a cat and have a coffee or a drink. Overall, we were good with all the stipulations. One thing that has come up with working with the development and the plan review staff, we haven't gotten actually into physical plan review because we have to work through this portion to be able to have the right to have a cat cafe before we can work with building staff, but in talking to a few staff members, that if we have the wall location where we have it, we might be looking at adding another restroom, and which incurs some other issues dealing with water, and so we'd like to relocate the wall itself, still have all the same controls, all the same stipulations that we're looking for to control the cats in the space, but making the actual cafe and the cat livable area a little bit larger so we can lessen the occupancy of the humans. And so we wouldn't need to add the second restroom. So all the other stipulations with controls and that's come up, we have no issue with. We just, in the last few days, noticed that we would have to move that wall to lower the human occupancy.
Okay, so you need to still navigate that process of gaining that approval. So that's affecting the floor plan, is what you're saying, right? And where that wall may or may not be.
Right.
Excuse me. Okay. There were 7 conditions of approval. You referenced them. Did you have any questions, other questions about those or concerns?
No, I just want to have a little flexibility of moving that wall if we need to. Still having the 2 controlled different spaces, just a little bit of flexibility on the wall itself.
So I was by there today, took a peek in the window. You probably saw me walk by, wondering who's a strange guy. So to 10 p.m.
And
so
that's
this
for
is people for after work.
Yeah, for
accommodating
after
evening
work
hours.
and having cat yoga, having different things that you can work with the community. So it's not just focused on coffee, it's more focused on the cat. So coffee is ancillary to this, where it's more being able to have little different things that go on with the community in the space. So that's why we would request to have to go to 10 p.m.
So do cats act strange when it's a full moon?
Well, you'd have to ask the owner on this one.
Because I just heard this recently, that full moon affects cats. So it makes them a little kooky. I did have a question about how is animal waste handled?
Well, on the cat side, we would go through that side, and then we have a mop sink and a control. We'd bag up all the solid waste and then go through the trash like a normal.
Okay, so for odor control, is that a plastic bag or?
Yeah.
Good, okay. Very good. Anything else?
Not from this.
Okay, thanks for being here today.
Great, thank you.
I may need to call you back up. Okay, this is a request for use permit for the Cat Cafe. Is there anyone else in the audience who wants to speak on this case today? Okay, not seeing anybody. There is some criteria I'm going to review. There's also 7 conditions of approval that the applicant has acknowledged that they understand and are in agreement with. We're going to see some floor plan changes. That's okay. So the criteria: a significant increase in vehicular pedestrian traffic. What this use fits is appropriate to this center, to this commercial area. Certainly no increase in traffic that's not designed to handle, and as such that criteria is met. Nuisance from odor, dust, gas, noise, vibration, smoke, heat. I did have a concern about odor. We've discussed that, and I believe the planned way to handle animal waste will prevent any of that nuisance type of issue. This criteria is met. Number 3, contribution to the deterioration of the neighborhood or downgrading of values. Again, we're bringing in another user into a vacant space. We're actually the opposite of deterioration. We're promoting property values and the neighborhood, and that criteria is met. Number 4, compatibility with existing structures and uses. Doesn't seem anything incompatible about a cat cafe. We don't have a lot of models and experience to really judge, but on face value and looking at the situation, the site, all seems like it fits pretty well. And based on that evaluation, I deem that criteria met. And then number 5, control disruptive behavior inside and outside. We won't speak for the cats, but we think the people will behave well and have no indication there'll be a problem. So that criteria appears to be met. There are 7 conditions of approval. The applicants acknowledged understanding of those. The request for use permit is approved, and good luck with your improvements and your business. Okay. Any other items? Enough? 16 enough today? Okay. That's our last case on today's agenda. Our next meeting of the City of Tempe hearing officer, as we mentioned earlier in the meeting, is Tuesday, back to Tuesdays, June 6, 2017. Mr. Abrahamson, anything else you wanted to add today?
Only staff announcement that we have is that it is National Building Safety Month, so recognize our colleagues in building safety.
Excellent. Thank you, Steve. National Building Safety Month, May. Great. Okay. Thank you very much, staff. Excellent job today. Thank you for members of the public for taking your time to be here. Today's meeting is adjourned.